In this video we'll finish the questions. We left off in the previous video at clauses 197, so we'll start here at 198. If we generate this now, okay, to who did John give that book? It should be, who did John give that book to? Who did John give that? Okay, so we don't want to move this to. If the to were left behind where it originated, this would be fine. Who did John give that book to? And we see here, okay, we moved the entire noun phrase that contained the interrogative nominal. We re-tagged that noun phrase as promoted. But now we see that we can't actually do that. We need to move this noun into the promoted noun phrase and leave the preposition behind. So let's go back to that rule. Okay, so this rule takes the noun phrase that has the interrogative noun and just moves the entire noun phrase. So we can't do that. So let's insert a new noun phrase in the output structure, and it will become the promoted NP. We don't want to move this entire noun phrase anymore. We'll just leave it. We'll leave it whatever grammatical relation it was. It will remain that way. And then now we need to move this interrogative noun to this new noun phrase. And let's try that. Who did John give that book to? Okay, so this was moved by the movement rule, and this was inserted by that same movement rule, this noun phrase. And now the preposition gets left behind, which is what we want. So let's save it. Go to the next one. Which book did Mary want John to read? Okay, here, did Mary want John book to read which? Here, the interrogative noun is embedded in an object complement clause. Here's the object complement clause. And we want this interrogative noun moved up to the front of the matrix clause. So let's go modify this rule. So sometimes the interrogative noun will be embedded in an object complement clause. And then, when that's the case, we want to insert a new promoted noun phrase out into the matrix clause, and we want to move the interrogative noun into that new noun phrase. And what else did we do here? Yeah, just move the noun. So we'll move the noun phrase, move the noun from the noun phrase that's embedded in the object complement clause out to a new noun phrase that will be in the promoted position. Okay, we left behind the word which. It should be, which book did Mary want John to read? So if we move this which along with the word book, everything will be fine. Let's go back to that rule, and that which we can see here is a prenominal. That's a user-defined category, prenominal, and we only want this to apply to the word which. We don't want the other prenominals to be moved. I don't know, honestly. We're learning as we go. But when this is here, we want to move it. Now, I don't think this will always be here for who or what. I know prenominal won't be here. So let's tag this as optional. So it's optional. If it is there, it will be moved to this new noun phrase. If it's not there, then this rule will still apply, and that only the noun will be moved to the new noun phrase. Which book did Mary want John to read? Good. Okay, let's keep going. Did John read that book? So this is a yes-no interrogative. What do we get now? Did John read that book? Good, we have our question auxiliary. Okay, let's save it. Should John read that book? Okay, we get will John read that book? If we look at the verb, okay, target tense and form is future. That's where we have will. But we also see that target mood is should obligation. So in this situation, we should move the should. We don't want the question auxiliary, we just want should. So this was inserted by layer 5, row 12. Layer 5, row 12. So right here, will. So let's add another one. We'll copy this row. And we'll modify these features. It's still future, but it's also should obligation. And when we have this, instead of inserting will, we want to insert should. And while we're here, this layer is getting a little messy. We have content questions, yes/no questions, imperatives. It's very helpful to put in some labels, some rows that serve as labels. Let's add a row. And we still specify features. Okay, and let's move this row up. So now we have a label. So here's the imperative section down through. Okay, the questions start here. Let's add another label row for yes/no interrogatives. And let's move this row up above this row. Okay, so now we have yes/no interrogatives. And we have content interrogatives mixed in. Let's add another row for content interrogatives. And let's move this row we'll move it up here. And now let's move the content interrogatives down. So this is a content interrogative. Move row. Yes. Move it down below this row. Let's move this row. Move it down below this row. Okay, so now yes/no interrogatives has only yes/no interrogatives, and content interrogatives has only content interrogatives. Let's add another label row for suggestive lets. And let's move this row down below. Okay, so now this is more organized. Let's keep this. Should John read that book? Generated text is identical. Let's save it. Does John want to read that book? So this is a yes/no content interrogative. John, okay. Subject, does John want to read that book? So this, we need a question auxiliary for the content question for the yes-no question that's present tense. Why did this verb get deleted? Want deleted by yes-no interrogatives. Okay. So this got deleted. There were that row does apply. Layer 5, row 10 does apply. But we need a new row that will apply to present tense. So if we go here, layer 5, so this is yes-no interrogative. We have past yes-no, future yes-no, future should yes-no, but we don't have any present tense. That's why this row applied, and this row doesn't do anything, you can see. So let's add another row. This will be present yes-no interrogative. Present, and actually this should be only third person singular. This will be a yes-no interrogative. Let's go ahead and specify for the word does. We know that's only third person singular. For everyone else, do I want to go? Do they want to go? Do we want to go? So let's specify present third singular. And let's modify this present okay. So here we want the stem. The question auxiliary is does. And let's move this up to the yes-no interrogatives. So past, let's move it up there. So past, present, future. Does John want to read that book? Generated text is identical. Let's save it. Is John able to read that book? If we generate this now, okay, does John is able to read that book? Okay, when it's a stative clause, meaning the verb is to be, we don't want these auxiliaries. All of those auxiliaries only apply to events, not to stative clauses, stative questions. So let's go back and add another rule. Okay, this is a yes-no question, yes-no interrogative. Let's add another row that applies only to the stative questions, because there we just want the verb to be. So when it's stative yes-no, let's say yes-no, to specify stative, we have this, hopefully you activated this feature way back when we were doing the feature adjustment rules. One of the options was to add a feature to clauses called stative clause type. And the first value is event, in other words, non-stative. So we're going to, we want this to be stative, so we could check all of these. All of these are stative. But another option is to right-click here, and now it says this means not an event. In other words, it has to be all of these. So it's stative. And let's move this row up into the yes-no questions. Right there. And we'll just say the stem, it'll be the verb to be, and we don't want any question auxiliary. Just the stem, and the next rule supplies the various forms of the verb to be. So let's see how this turns out. Okay, John is able to read that book. So we don't get the auxiliary anymore, but we need to move this into the promoted position. So let's add another movement rule. that in stative clauses we'll move the VP Okay, so this needs to be a yes, no interrogative, and it needs to be stative. So we right click there. In that situation, I think it will be okay to just move this to the promoted position. We may find out later that we need to insert another VP. We'll find out. We're pretending that this is a low resource language and we're discovering things as we go. Is John able to read that book? Generated text is identical. So let's save it. Okay, we're done with the questions. This next one is a quote. We'll save this one for the next video. Let's go back though and regenerate everything up through clauses 103. Let's regenerate all of our questions and make sure they're working properly. Okay, so there's one sentence that has an issue. Which book did John read? Let's go back to this one. Okay, we need to move this prenominal which along with the interrogative noun into the promoted noun phrase. So this one was moved by the movement rule, rule 1. So let's go back to that. And it was layer 1. Yeah, layer 1. So sometimes there will be a prenominal constituent in here. That's a user-defined category. Prenominal. We only want to move the word which. We don't want to move the other prenominals. But this won't always be here, so let's tag it as optional. And when it is there, we also want to move it into this promoted noun phrase. Let's see if that works. Okay, generated text is identical. Let's go back just to be safe and regenerate all of these sentences again. Okay, all of the newly generated sentences match the saved sentences, so everything is proper. In the next video, we'll move on to clauses 104.